If you're a car enthusiast, you may have heard of Geely, Chery, and BYD, all Chinese car companies making waves domestically and internationally. But did you know that China is now the largest automotive market in the world? In 2021, China sold over 26 million new vehicles, outpacing the US by about 10 million units. And the massive auto industry there is poised to take over the world, with experts predicting 2023 will mark the year China becomes the number 2 exporter of passenger vehicles in the world, surpassing the US and South Korea and closing in on Japan's lead. So how did China's automotive market go from globally irrelevant to world domination without most people noticing? In today's episode on Get Around How, we will be sharing the top 3 reasons China is taking over the global automotive market. Plus, we'll have some info on why this should concern you and what the future might hold, so make sure to stick around to the very end. You definitely don't want to miss this one. China's massive automotive market growth in large part comes from policy initiatives. The Chinese government is one of many to offer incentives to bolster the auto industry. But the policy changes in recent years have made China an incredibly attractive place to build and sell vehicles, so much so that the automotive industry is now a pillar of the global economy. Let's talk about a few key initiatives they've rolled out. First up, subsidies for electric vehicles. China is all about promoting EVs and reducing dependence on fossil fuels, so they've offered subsidies to making manufacturing and buying an EV more affordable. For example, Shenzhen-based manufacturer BYD received $435 million in contributions between 2010 and 2015, making it the state-sponsored champion of electric and hybrid vehicles in China. Next, tax incentives. Car buyers can enjoy some sweet tax breaks like lower sales taxes for energy-efficient vehicles and tax exemptions for EVs. This has made buying a car much more accessible and attractive for consumers. For example, in May 2022, China released a policy to boost new energy vehicle, or NEV, sales in rural parts. And at the time, the government's new policy cut the new purchase tax by 50% for cars priced at no more than CNY 300,000 or US dollars of 45,000, with an engine capacity of 2-liter or less. We also have transportation infrastructure investment. The government has invested a ton in roads, highways, and public transportation systems, making it easier for people to get around, leading to an increased interest in purchasing cars. Next up, support for domestic automakers. The government is giving subsidies, tax breaks, and other incentives to their own car companies. This has helped these companies grow and expand both at home and abroad. MIC 2025 was enacted in 2015 to encourage the domestic development of 10 critical strategic industries, including energy-saving vehicles and NEVs. The policy is a continuation of China's indigenous innovation policy that first emerged in 2006 and has been driving domestic growth ever since.
China actually now shapes the market, the global market for semiconductors. And that is important for companies, for our companies.
And finally, technological innovation. The government is investing in research and development and has created special zones to encourage innovation in the auto industry. This has spurred new technology and made it easier for companies to bring new products to the market. As you can see, the Chinese government is not kidding about building a global automotive empire, and their efforts have paid off so far. Let's talk about demand. There are a number of reasons why you've been seeing more and more Chinese car brands popping up lately, and it's interesting to take a look at why this is happening. First of all, let's talk about the Chinese market itself. China is the largest auto market in the world, with a vast population and a rapidly growing middle class. China is home to over 1.4 billion people, a whopping 18% of the world's population. That's a lot of people to sell cars to before you even consider tapping into the global market. Add on that China's middle class is growing at the fastest rate the world has ever seen, and you have a domestic market that is primed to spend some money on family vehicles. This means that there is a huge demand for cars, both in terms of quantity and quality. Chinese consumers are looking for affordable yet reliable vehicles that meet their needs, and Chinese automakers are stepping up to the plate. Chinese automakers are also taking advantage of the growing global demand for EVs as more and more consumers are looking for sustainable and environmentally friendly transportation options. This is a market that Chinese automakers are well positioned to take advantage of with the government's support and their own investments in EV technology. As a result, Chinese automakers are expanding globally, establishing a presence in other countries and exporting their vehicles to international markets. This allows them to tap into new markets and increase their global reach, which is a critical factor in the growth of the Chinese auto industry. Now let's talk about what's in the driver's seat of all this success: the price. Chinese car makers are killing it with affordable vehicles that don't skimp on the latest tech and quality. Plus, they've got a super solid local supply chain, making it cheaper to produce an EV in China than anywhere else. This makes for a sweet deal that is tough to beat for both Chinese and global consumers. Tesla's factory in Shanghai cranked out almost 711,000 cars last year and was responsible for over half of Tesla's total output. This push has given birth to a bunch of new Chinese car companies. Some of them are still trying to find their footing, but a few, like BYD, NIO, and XPeng Inc., are poised to become household names. All right, so we have a government making big moves to support the auto industry and a domestic and international customer base that wants the tech China has to offer at the price point they can provide. Let's add the final piece here: capital support. The policies, growth, and innovation fueling the market's growth are incredibly attractive to investors. In the past year, from May 2021 to May 2022, we've seen a whopping 254 financing events happen. That's a lot of cash flowing around. And what's even more impressive is that 90 different companies have received investments from all sorts of big players like PEs, VCs, and OEMs, both domestically and internationally. And it's not just big players getting in on the action. We've also seen 57 companies complete Series A and pre-Series A financing rounds, which is a big deal for any startup. But what's all this money going towards? It looks like high-tech automotive domains are the main attraction. We're talking about driving automation, sensors, semiconductor-connected vehicles, batteries, and vehicle manufacturing. Out of all these hot topics, autonomous driving is the most popular area of investment, accounting for over 20% of the investment. Now that we know what is driving the massive growth in the Chinese auto market, let's talk about why we should be concerned. There are a few reasons why people are starting to raise eyebrows. One big issue is the government's involvement. They've been incredibly supportive of the industry with subsidies and tax breaks, and some folks say this gives Chinese companies an unfair advantage. And there are worries that state-sponsored companies might bend the rules and engage in unfair competition. Another hot topic is the impact on the environment. Sure, the government is promoting electric vehicles, but the industry's rapid growth is leading to more air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. That's got environmentalists and public health advocates worried about the long-term effects. People have also had some concerns about the quality of Chinese-made vehicles. They've been criticized for being shoddy and unreliable, which doesn't do much to instill confidence in consumers. Although some Chinese automakers have made some serious strides in improving their products, the industry still has a lot of work to do to change people's minds. Finally, the growth of the Chinese automotive industry is affecting global competition. As Chinese auto companies expand globally, they're becoming a more significant threat to international automakers, causing job losses and economic disruption in other countries. And that's got people worried about the future of the whole automotive industry. So what does the future hold for China's impact on the global auto manufacturing market? The China Association of Automobile Manufacturers predicts that growth in the light vehicle market will dip in 2023. The trade group expects sales to increase just 1.3% after a 9.4% growth this year. But CAAM is also forecasting that sales of new cars like sedans, SUVs, and crossovers will still hit 23.8 million next year, up from 23.5 million this year. And to avoid a big slowdown, CAAM is calling on the government to extend tax incentives for fuel-powered vehicles next year. You might remember that in June, the Chinese government reduced the purchase tax to 5% for fuel-powered vehicles under a specific price and engine size. This tax cut boosted the auto market, which had taken a hit from the severe outbreak of, you know what, in Shanghai, the largest city and auto production hub in China. And it looks like the tax incentives have worked because light vehicle shipments across the country have risen by 12% in the first 11 months of the year. But the incentives are set to expire at the end of December, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. Do you think China will move into the #1 spot for exports? Or will the government's incentives backfire and make the global market too wary of Chinese cars? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so we can keep you updated. Now, watch these videos. You're going to love them.